Welcome to another episode of the Less is More Sports podcast. Matt and I have a special treat for you all today as he and I draft our 15 players in college basketball this season. But there is a twist to it. Matt cannot draft anyone from Indiana. I cannot draft anyone from Duke or Texas. So we are going to avoid our favorite teams just to make it a little more interesting. But nonetheless, should be a jam-packed college basketball draft episode on the Less is More Sports podcast. And I have a feeling I already know what Matt's got a few tricks up his sleeve, so I can't wait to see what he's got.
I'm not wearing long sleeves. I'm actually just wearing short sleeves, but that's not the point. But yeah, I think I'll pull some surprises on you, but nothing malicious. No trades, of course.
Yeah, no trades. And at the very end, we do draft a coach, but same rules apply. I can't go with Chris Beard or the GOAT himself, Mike Krzyzewski, and Matt cannot go with Mike Woodson at IU. So without further ado, I'm going to flip a coin to see who goes first. Matt, do you call heads or tails?
I will take heads.
All right. And it is tails.
I believe you.
Oh, okay, but the viewers might not.
Yes, Les is going to cheat through this meaningless fantasy draft.
You never know. Hey.
He is that desperate.
I'm friends with some Patriots fans. You never know. They might have taught me a few things.
Oh, it's CoinGate. That's what we've got going.
We got CoinGate going on.
CoinGate. There's cameras in my room. You deflated my football this morning when I was tossing with my dad. I can't believe it, Les. I really thought you were better than that.
I surprise you. I surprise people from time to time.
I'm going to have to get Les like a hoodie of shame that he has to wear now, like Bill Belichick does, and just look grumpy all the time.
I'll cut the sleeves off and everything. It's going to be solid.
That should have been your Halloween costume.
Right, and just walk around with like a cut-off hoodie and like a mean mug.
Bill Bella-less.
Bill Bella-less. I like it. Oh, that's creative. I got to give it to you. That was pretty creative.
I'm good with puns on the fly. They just buzz around in my head.
All right, so without further ado, time for my first overall pick. And without further ado, my first overall
Wait.
Hold on.
You got to make the noise like the pick is in.
Dun, 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 dun.
There we go.
All right. So with my first overall pick, I'm going to go with a freshman, and I'm going to go with Chet Holmgren from Gonzaga. But I'm going to put him at the 4 spot. You will see why later on.
Oh, all right. And just so for you guys watching along at home, the only other rule we have for this draft is since Les has selected Chet Holmgren, he can't pick Drew Timme, but I can. But then one selection per team. Either way.
Correct.
So whenever we pick somebody from a school, I can't load up on Duke players because Les can't. I can only pick one, and I'm not going to do it right now. So we're going to hold off because
surprising.
I'm going with a guy who I have been high on forever. He's still who I think is going to come out with a Player of the Year trophy at the end of the year. I'm going with Trayvon Williams. I really am.
Are you putting him at the center or the power forward?
Power forward.
All right. It's a good pick. It's a very good pick. Trayvon Williams and a lot of people's preseason Big Ten Player of the Year. So obviously, and a lot of people believe has a very strong chance to win Player of the Year. I know you are one of those people, but so yeah, solid pick. So without further ado, I'm gonna keep it with the bigs, and I'm gonna go with Kofi Cockburn. Despite being suspended the first 3 games of the season, this has no effect on our draft at all.
No.
So, I got Kofi Cockburn from Illinois. I got my Hoss in the middle, and I got my versatile shot blocking big right below him. I like my team already. I already like my team.
I'm glad you like your team because now you actually got me there. I was actually going to use my pick on Kofi Kofi Cockburn if you didn't take him. I really was. But instead, I am going to go with my backup plan, which is Hunter Dickinson from Michigan.
Solid pick. But of course, I feel like if you just draft any Big Ten big at this point, I feel like it's a solid pick if you're going to run a big front line.
It's like we talked about last week. It's just so jam-packed in there that you just can't figure out who you're going to play week to week. So that's who I'm picking. I'm going to roll with that one. So
fair enough. So now that brings me to the perimeter players.
I think I know who you're going to pick. But I'm not going to say, because if I'm wrong, I'm going to look stupid.
I'm going to go, you probably do, because it is a player that I'm very high on. And it was one of the players in our college basketball preview that you and I disagreed on as far as conference player of the year. You already drafted his teammate, Trayvon Williams. So at the shooting guard position, I am going to go with a guy that I think will skyrocket in the NBA draft this year, and that is Jaden Ivy. Not to mention that Ivy and Holmgren have chemistry playing in the FIBA under-19s earlier this summer. So I like that already.
I don't really know if we talked about this guy a lot during our last show because we didn't really talk about this conference a lot. And it's a damn shame because I really think we should have, but I love this guy from a leadership standpoint, and I like how he's always been around, how he's been around this program for a very long time and will be a very solid floor general. So I'm going to go with Connor Gillespie from Villanova.
Colin Gillespie, or is it Connor or Colin Gillespie? Colin Gillespie.
You're right, it's Colin.
You know, I'm interested to see how he does this season because, you know, like you said, he's a very good floor general, very smart basketball player, but coming off a significant injury, it's always interesting to see how they perform coming off of that. But nonetheless, just from leadership alone.
I got a feeling he's going to have a comeback year. I really like his toughness and the way he played before that. And even when he went down, we all buried Villanova. We said it was over. I forget who was supposed to upset them, but it was even an upset I picked. It might have been Bucknell or Belmont. And I really thought they were going to get knocked out, but they weren't. And I think that's going to motivate Colin Gillespie in ways we're not thinking of, too, because when you get hurt and the team wins without you, people start saying, oh, you weren't that important anyway. And that's when you go into, I'm going to show you up mode.
I feel it. And kind of what I was alluding to, I feel like just off leadership alone, that's always a good player to have in your lineup.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so I'm going to surprise a lot of people with this pick, but, you know, I got so far Cockburn, Holmgren, Jaden Ivy, 3 guys that are very good players, obviously can defend well. So, but I need somebody that's going to space the floor, Matt. And you know what? There is not too many in college basketball that can do this better than Buddy Boeheim.
Oh, that's true.
I like my team so far.
I mean, he's 6'6". Does that mean you have to draft Jim now, or?
I can't draft Jim. I can't.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
coaches are separate.
No, coaches are not separate. Yeah, I can't draft Jim.
Now I'm going to go here with a guy who I've been super high on. I talked about him ad nauseum last week, and I'm going to continue to talk about him ad nauseum all season because I love the way this guy plays fearlessly. He may have like a Steph Curry quality to him with the way he just pulls up from anywhere. So no surprise here. I'm going with Max Atmos from Oral Roberts to be like my spot up shooter.
You putting him at this forward or the shooting guard position?
Shooting guard.
You know, I thought about taking Atmos, but at the same time, I like the size on Buddy a little better. So I feel like I got length, and he's not a terrible defender at the college level. So I feel like he plugs into my lineup pretty well. That's the thing. This is obviously about strategy as well. So
it is
kind of.
I'm just picking guys I like, really. If I was a GM, these are the guys who I would pick because I like high motor guys. So I've always been that way.
Well, speaking of high motor guys. This is going to lead me to my point guard selection. A guy that I'm really high on. He was one of my favorite players to watch in the NCAA tournament last year, and I believe is the heart and soul of that UCLA Bruins team. And I'm going to go with Tiger Campbell.
If you're wondering why we're taking a break, we're writing this down so we can post this later without having to remember what we did.
Yes, and we're going to have the fans vote on which team they believe would win.
Or who would score the most fantasy points or whoever, because, why not? That's what we do.
Yeah, why not? Speculation. Oh, it's all for fun anyways.
I have a feeling my next pick is going to piss you off a little bit, because I am really shocked that you haven't taken this guy yet, because I am going to take Imani Bates from Memphis to fill in with that 4 position. Like you said, after you talked about him so lovingly, I had to go on and review some of those things, and you're right. The guy does have a lot of Kevin Durant-ish tendencies in him. I really do hope that we don't get the Tim Wiseman situation, though, because I really want to see this guy play.
James Wiseman.
Yes. Oh, Tim Wiseman. Tim Wiseman is a bluegrass musician who plays the mandolin. This is what my head does every day. Every damn day. I get all these things mixed up in my head because I'm sick in the head, I guess.
Don't get me wrong, I love Imani Bates as a player, but I'm also trying to draft as far as like fit wise. And I feel like with Jaden Ivy and being able to be my primary scoring option, I just don't know how him and Imani Bates would fare well together. But however, that doesn't mean that I am not going to draft another freshman sensation with my 6-man and a guy that can really stroke the rock, and that is Patrick Baldwin.
My phone is going to struggle to spell Milwaukee.
And a lot of people wonder why the hell I have Buddy Boeheim starting over Patrick Baldwin. I did that strictly off experience alone. Obviously, in a game situation, if Baldwin gets hot and Buddy's not, he can ride the bench. But I like Baldwin as my 6-man, just a guy who can stroke it and come out and just give me a bucket.
Les, you talked about fit. You talked about how guys will play well together. This is one of those times where, as like a drafting GM, you just look at the board and say, that guy's still on it. Screw strategy, screw planning. I'm going out and getting him, and that guy is Drew Timme, who I can't believe we let it get this far. I was playing some strategy a little bit, but you know what? 6-man, you got to have an impact guy. I really don't know why I'm doing this, but when the preseason Wooden American player is on the board, you got to make your move. You got to have some depth. Have some fun with it. Plus, Trayvon Williams.
I drafted a Gonzaga player. Yeah, I drafted a Gonzaga player with my first overall pick, so I couldn't draft Timme after that.
The door was open, Les. The door was open.
For you.
All right, your move. For me.
All right, my move. I'm going to look, here's the thing. As much as I love Chet, I do feel like his weight is going to be an issue at some point. And I feel like, I'm going to have to run those lineups where I just have a bunch of just guys that are just absolute loads in the paint. So with my next pick, as much as it's going to kill me to do it, I'm going to have to go with Armando Bacot from North Carolina.
The pain is too much for you to say.
Unfortunately, yes. I mean, Armando Bacot is an absolute monster on the boards and everything like that. So, plus he's a load himself. So, I mean, if Chet gets worked by some more physical players, I think I can just sub Bacot in. He's also a pretty solid defender, and I know firsthand what he can do because we got to play him twice a year. So, there's that.
You know better than anybody else.
I do.
Les, I think I'm gonna go with another surprise move for mine. Get some backup at the guard position. I don't know, because we didn't really talk about this team either, or their conference, which is a shame because it's loaded. But when you're trying to cover the Power 5 and everybody else, it's very hard.
Yeah.
But for my backup point guard position, I'm going to get Tyson Etienne from Wichita State. 3-year starter, co-player of the year in the conference last year. I really think he's going to make some big moves going forward, and I'm very excited to see him play because the guy is just electric when he's on the court. And if he stays healthy, it's going to be hell for anybody else.
Very interesting pick. And I'm trying not to misspell Etienne. I feel like I spelled it
Just
like
do your best.
I was like, I feel like I spelled it like the Clemson running back. The former Clemson running back, I should say.
Silence as we wait for the pick.
Oh, are you waiting on me?
Yeah, I was waiting on you.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were just writing that down. I was just giving you some time. But anyways.
I'm speeding.
All right. I am going to go with my backup point guard on this one, who I could insert as a starter if something's not going well, but a guy that I'm very surprised you haven't selected already, and your pick to win the Big 12 Player of the Year, and that is going to be Remy Martin, a guy that I've really liked watching in college basketball the last several seasons. Going to be very excited to see what he does in a Bill Self offense, and a guy that I've been watching since high school because obviously he played on the same high school team as Marvin Bagley, a guy that a Duke fan knows all too well. So got Remy Martin with my 8th pick.
Well, I think I'm going to surprise you a little bit again with my pick here because I'm going to go with a guy who's a teammate of Remy Martin. I'm going to go with David McCormick to give you a little bit of size in the backfield. My mind is still thinking about that Colts game.
Oh, don't remind me. You know, we had every chance to win that game as well.
That was painful.
Very, very painful. Well, Matt, since you went with a teammate of my most recent pick, I'm going to go with a teammate of someone you picked in our first 5 picks. And I'm going to go with another perimeter player for the Memphis Tigers, and I'm going to go with Lester Quiones.
I like.
Yeah, very, very, very underrated player in college basketball this year. I think could be poised to have a very good season.
Now, I didn't even meant to write that one down. All right, Les. This is another move for I'm not really big on picking freshmen, but this is a guy I think could make a really big impact, especially in the loaded SEC conference. So I'm actually going to go with Jabari Smith from Auburn here. I like the way he shoots. I like the way he's 6'10". He's the perfect modern 4 in a lot of ways. I hope he plays because you never know with that. So I'm going to go with Jabari Smith here.
Very solid pick. Very solid pick. You know, I'm going to make my good friend Jacob Klukas proud on this one and draft a Buckeye. And this is another guy that I feel like is very surprising that we let slip this far. I know
who we're going for here.
Yes. Somebody that I can really transition throughout the anywhere from 3 to 5, and I feel like be very comfortable. And I'm going to go with E.J. Liddell for Ohio State.
What round are we on?
We are on the 10th round. This is your 10th pick. So
my 10th pick. Wow. So for my 10th pick, I'm going to go somewhere totally strange here. And you're going to look at me like I'm an idiot, but I'm okay with it because I'm very high on this team. And I think they're going to win a very tough conference. Unless you're going to hate me, and don't worry about the name because I'm not even sure I'm going to pronounce it right. But I'm going with the leader of the St. Bonaventure Bonnies, one of the quiet teams who's going to come out of nowhere, in my opinion, and really shock a lot of people, in Osun Osunniyi.
Yeah, I'm going to definitely need to look that up.
It's okay. Like I said, you don't know what's coming next.
Now we're getting to the later part of the draft. I feel like we got our first 10 guys. Now we can just draft pretty much a bunch of fill-in guys wherever we want. So this is where it's going to get real interesting. And let's see, a lot of guys that I could go with here. But you know what? I'm going to go with both of you and me's pick to win the SEC Player of the Year in Jaden Shackelford.
I cannot spell Bonaventure. The name worked. It just won't let me put in St. Bonaventure. I don't know why.
That's really surprising
you
because St. Bonaventure is a place versus a person's name. That's
Yeah,
really
I
surprising.
know. So you picked Shackelford.
Yes.
Now for my pick, I'm going to go with a guy from a team we said we didn't know a lot about. But if there's anybody poised to have a breakout year in this conference that we didn't talk about, it's going to be this guy. So I'm going to go with Matt Mayer from Baylor, a 6'9" guy who can stretch out the floor, play pretty good defense, has a championship pedigree. I really like this kid.
There's a lot to like. I remember when I first watched him play in a Baylor uniform, could really stroke the ball, was a really good six-man microwave option. So there's a lot to like about that pick. So got to give it to you. All right, I'm going to get some more depth in my wing position. And probably the only Vanderbilt player I will ever draft on any college basketball draft ever, and that is Scottie Pippen Jr.
Junior? Vandy. I'm just going to go with Vandy there. That's what pick are we on? Is this pick 13?
This is your 12th pick.
This is my 12th pick. Okay. So I'm going to go back over to my big board. Going to do something very strange here because I love doing this to you. Another team I'm very high on, and I really do love them, is Belmont. They played a secret scrimmage with Indiana, and they only lost by around 10 points. So I'm going to go with Grayson Murphy, a guy who's a little bit of a do-it-all player, averaged double-digit points and rebounds last year. So I'm going to go with him.
All right, fair enough. Well, you already drafted one Villanova player, so you couldn't obviously have drafted this guy. But I'm going to go with Colin Gillespie's backcourt mate, Justin Moore, with my 13th pick. Really like the kid's game. Kind of a do-it-all scorer, Swiss Army knife kind of guy. And that's kind of a trend with Villanova players. They don't usually turn out to be like stars at the NBA level, but they turn out to be very quality players. And that starts with what they learn in college from Jay Wright. So I'm absolutely got to go with Justin Moore with this one.
I just need to look up one thing. All right. Here's another team we didn't talk about in a very loaded conference, but I love this guy. I love the way he plays. He's a Big Ten guy, and he has a little bit of NBA pedigree because of his parents again. I'm going to go with Ron Harper Jr. from Rutgers.
Ooh, sleeper.
I thought he was the third, so that's why I was looking up. I didn't want to call him the wrong name, so I was like, is he Ron Harper Jr. or Ron Harper the third? All right, Les, you're up.
All right, with my 14th pick, I just know that Big Blue Nation's going to be coming at my neck if I don't pick one of their guys. So to avoid that, I'm going to go with forward Kion Brooks. Really liked what I saw from him in their scrimmage against Kentucky Wesleyan. Think could have a really good junior year and a surprisingly experienced Kentucky squad. Something to watch out for.
Yeah, it is unusual to have an experienced Kentucky team. Well, Les, I'm going to go with the guy who I know is going to be near and dear to your heart as a Texas fan, because I'm going to go with Marcus Carr.
That's fair game. I'm actually surprised that 14th pick, this is where you draft one of the guys that I can't draft. And I'm surprised to not hear another name on here, but we'll get to that later. But all right, I guess I am going to pick my last overall pick. And this is going to be tough because there's so many good players in college basketball. But I obviously cannot pick them all. However, I am going to go with one of the funniest names in college basketball to me, and a very sleeper team in the Big Ten in Maryland, and I'm going to go with Fats Russell. Just to add to my point guard depth.
I just hope he stays healthy. He was a really fun player to watch when he was healthy last year, and then everything kind of fell apart for him, especially over at Rhode Island. He's a transfer. He's going to add it to a lot of depth with Eric Ayala. They're going to be a fun team to watch. Hey, Les.
Mm-hmm. I know it's coming.
What?
I know it's coming.
Here comes pick number 15, a little guy you might have heard about last week, Paolo Banchero from Duke.
I am really surprised that you picked him with your 15th overall pick, but just to get under my skin, here it is.
I can create any lineup I want now.
You can.
Because when you told me this, it was like, I can just wait until the last two picks to get the two guys I really want and draft whoever I want in between. Have some fun with it.
Fair enough. All right. So now we are on to the last pick of our draft, but it will not be a player. It will now be a coach. And given that I have drafted from teams that are very well coached, one well-coached team that I didn't draft, and I'm going to go with a guy that is used to playing 10 to 12 guys on a nightly basis, because with all this talent I have on my roster, I got to have a guy who's going to play deep into the bench. So I'm going to go with Leonard Hamilton from Florida State.
I like that one. Not FAUFSU. Jesus. I hate my phone right now.
I hate my phone all the time.
Why all the time? What do they do to you?
It's at a file system limit right now, so half the time my apps don't even work properly.
That is no good.
Nope.
Why would it do that to you?
I don't know, because I've literally YouTubed everything on how to get rid of it, and nothing works at all. It's just like, bleh.
You know, Les, there's a team that's surprisingly absent from both of our lists, as far as I know, unless I missed something with you. But I'm going to end that now because I know this is going to get me in hot water, and RJ is going to send me a DM. But why not go with Tom Izzo? I like that guy. He's not afraid to get in your face. He's got a fun attitude. I almost went with Penny Hardaway, but I had a Memphis guy already, so I'm gonna stick with that. Because in case you're not playing along at home, many times when we take a good player, it means they have a really good coach, and we can't pick them.
Right.
So that really narrows the field down. For me, I was debating that whole 5 minutes between Dana Altman and Tom Izzo. But I got a lot of divas on this team, so I'm going to go with a guy who can handle divas. Maybe a little bit better than a Dana Altman can. So I'm going to go with Tom Izzo.
You know, as high as you were on Oregon, I'm surprised you didn't pick an Oregon player.
I thought about it. I'm just disappointed you did not pick Trace Jackson Davis. I was kind of surprised by that.
I feel like I had my size guys all lined up. Plus, I mean, dude, I got Baycott and EJ Liddell coming off my bench.
That's true.
I mean, if I want to play him big, I got Kion Brooks from Kentucky too. So who I think's really, like I said, I was very high. I literally liked what I saw from him in their scrimmage with Kentucky Wesleyan. I think he could have a really big season. But honestly, I wanted to space it out. I wanted to pretty much have like a more modernized basketball look. Yes, be able to throw you some to be able to play big when I need to, but definitely more. My main focus was to defend on the perimeter and shoot the ball. So I feel like I did pretty well with that.
I just wanted to give some guys you haven't heard of a lot some due, especially like Ron Harper Jr. and Grayson Murphy and guys like that. If I had to add one guy to my roster to get to 16, it would be David Liddy from Colorado State, who I really like. But it's either that it's Pablo Banchero or it's David Liddy. I'm gonna go with Banchero. So
Solid
it was
list.
close though. That's the one guy I wish I could have drafted, but this didn't work out.
So just a quick rundown. I'm going to read off Matt's roster first, and then I'm going to read off mine. And then we're going to let you all, and then we're going to post this online later, and we're going to let you all vote for who has the better roster. So without further ado, Matt has Hunter Dickinson from Michigan, Trayvon Williams. Sorry, wow. I couldn't draft any Duke guys, so I had Zion Williamson back in my head. So
poor Zion.
I was having withdrawals. But anyways, Trayvon Williams from Purdue, Imani Bates from Memphis, Max Atmos from Oral Roberts, Colin Gillespie from Villanova, Drew Timme from Gonzaga, Tyson Etienne from Wichita State, David McCormick from Kansas, Jabari Smith from Auburn, that kid from St. Bonaventure, who I cannot pronounce his name at all. You want to help me out here?
No, I'm gonna let you keep rolling. I don't want to interrupt you like a jerk.
Matt Mayer from Baylor, Grayson Murphy from Belmont, Ron Harper Jr. from Rutgers, Marcus Carr, Hook 'em Horns, and Paulo Banchero from Duke. It will all be coached by Tom Izzo. Now for my roster, I have Kofi Cockburn from Illinois, Chet Holmgren from Gonzaga, Buddy Boeheim from Syracuse, Jaden Ivy from Purdue, Tiger Campbell from UCLA, Patrick Baldwin from UM Milwaukee, Armando Bacot from UNC, Remy Martin from Kansas, Lester Quiones from Memphis, EJ Liddell from Ohio State, Jaden Shackelford from Bama, Scottie Pippen Jr. from Vandy, Justin Moore from Villanova, Kion Brooks from Kentucky, and Fats Russell from Maryland, and they will be coached by none other than Leonard Hamilton from Florida State. I think we built some pretty nice teams here, Matt.
I think we did too. Like I said, I just want to introduce people to players I haven't heard of because, we're not going to get a lot of love from the AAC or the West Coast Conference. All right, Les. If there was one guy, if we wanted to expand the roster to 16, who would you pick?
Well, that depends. Am I keeping by the same rules so I can't go with a Texas or Duke guy?
Yeah.
Well, that's a tough one. If I had to expand my roster to where I could pick one guy. Just because he always played a great game against my Blue Devils, just as a 16th guy, I might have to go with Garrison Brooks from Mississippi State.
That's a good one. Like I said, I would go with David Liddy from Colorado State.
Just to keep the trend of players you haven't really heard of.
Or just because I like mid-majors and I like the way they play.
Fair enough.
So I'm going to add that in there too, just for fun. 16th man.
The 16th man. He's on the IR.
He's in case one of these other players is unable to perform their duties. We have a guy waiting in the wings.
He's on the COVID list.
All I'm thinking about too is the guys we didn't even take. We didn't take Eric Ayala. Mm-hmm. We didn't take Iverson Molinar. We didn't take. There's somebody big I think we're missing. We didn't take Kendrick Davis from SMU. We didn't take Quinterly from Alabama, which I
thought about it, but I picked Jaden Shackelford, so I couldn't pick him.
You can't pick him. I thought about it too. We didn't pick Kennedy Chandler, who we were very high on last week. I was surprised by that one.
Oh, actually, no. Actually, I'm going to change my 16th man pick to a player. I'm going to take a page out of your playbook and talk about a player that not a lot are talking about. Just to keep another big body on my roster, I'm going to take off Garrison Brooks, and I'm going to replace him with Kenneth Lofton Jr. from Louisiana Tech.
That's a good one. You finally learned something about the mid-majors from me. I'm very proud of you.
I watched him play in the FIBA under-19s this summer, and he's a low down low. Really uses his body well to grab boards and get space and to score underneath the basket. I like his game.
So, is he the son of Kenny Lofton of Major League Baseball fame, or
I don't
do you
believe
know?
so. I can look this up
Okay.
real quick.
Yeah, look it up real quick because I'm curious. For those of you who weren't alive in the 90s or don't care about baseball in the 90s, Kenny Lofton was a very speedy, very, very efficient base stealing player for like the Cleveland teams of the mid 90s. He was a leadoff guy. He played for the Yankees for a bit. Some people think he should be in the Hall of Fame, but it'll probably come down to a Veterans Committee vote. I think he was a very good player. I have no doubt about it. Kenny Lofton, especially if you want to see some cool non-Ricky Henderson related base stealing highlights, check out Kenny Lofton's highlights because they are a treasure trove of athletic plays and amazing plays. He was a great leadoff guy. He almost delivered a world championship to Cleveland long before LeBron James was the chosen one. Kenny Lofton. Put him in the Hall of Fame, Veterans Committee. I have spoken. Les, what's our answer?
Are you ready?
Yes.
Kenneth Lofton Jr. and former baseball great Kenny Lofton are not related.
Oh, no. I'm sad now.
I'm going to be completely honest, though. If I'm looking at Lofton Jr. and Lofton, the baseball player, you could pretty much look at their builds and be like, yeah, they're not related.
They're not. Yeah, Kenny Lofton was a wiry guy. That's why he was like batting leadoff for like those great Cleveland teams in the 90s. So, I mean, now we know the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey would say, if we want to make the show even more dated. But like I said, it's surprising when you think about it, how loaded, like, you talked last week about Western Kentucky as well, how loaded, like, even well, that conference is dissolving, so I guess they're still Conference USA at the moment, but Western Kentucky is actually going to join the MAC soon.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be MACtion and bowling. Oh, dude, I just you go first. Then I have to show you my revelation.
I wanted to take Davion McKnight, because it was a player that I covered throughout his high school time, but it didn't sit right with me because I wanted to keep it as unbiased as possible. And of course I could totally take Davion for sure.
My big takeaway is that now we have Bowling Green, Kentucky and Bowling Green in the MAC in Ohio in the same conference. So we're going to have a battle of the Bowling Greens every year. That'll be cool.
That would be really cool. They should make like a little trophy or award for it. The Battle of Bowling Greens.
It's literally a bowling ball, like made of crystal. I like it.
Or like a bowl of greens, or like get like a bowl of grass or something and like the bowl of green.
Asparagus, Brussels sprouts, heads of lettuce. Green. I like it.
Anything or the money. Bowling, now that we got the NIL bill, we can make it money.
We need to make this a thing. We're gonna hashtag this. Forget about the teams we drafted. This is the major story from this podcast. The Bowl of Greens.
The Bowl of Greens.
The Bowl of Greens. I love it.
If you take anything from me in this podcast, the Bowl of Greens.
The Bowl of Greens. That is the only thing that matters. That is the only thing anyone should care about. The Bowl of Greens. But yeah, it's been amazing because I'm even thinking about, like, as I thought about taking like Bo Bowie from Northwestern. Mm-hmm. I feel kind of dirty for not taking him, but man, there were just so many other guys I really wanted. I mean, it's like we've said all the time. This college basketball this season with the new transfer rules and the fog of COVID lifting, and kids, freshmen being able to be a part of like off-season programs, it's going to make this a really intriguing year for college basketball because there are only a few teams where I can confidently say they are not going to be in it at the end. Other than that, I mean, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. I mean, we didn't even take Caleb Love from North Carolina.
I took Armando Bacot, so I couldn't.
I couldn't either. I thought about it, but I don't know if putting a Duke guy and a Carolina guy on the same team is going to work out well or not.
I mean, I feel like it'd be very surprising. You never know. Caleb Love's a nice player, though.
He is a really nice player. I think he could win ACC Player of the Year.
But yeah. But anyways, college basketball is right around the corner, and I'm not gonna lie, I already have like my first bet of the season. So it literally happened just before we hopped on the air today. It doesn't involve money. Does not involve money.
Do you have to get a tattoo if you lose, or?
Oh no. So take a wild guess which game it is. I'll give you a hint. It's in it's in a little over a week.
Duke?
And
I can't. Are they playing Michigan State or can't? They're playing Kentucky this year.
they're playing Kentucky.
Playing Kentucky. So you're going to hear a lot of crap this week.
So if Kentucky wins, my friends Jacob Klugas and Jacob Teasley get to decorate my condo in nothing but Kentucky gear. So just to make it more interesting, just to make it even more interesting, if they do win, I'll keep the Kentucky gear, all the Kentucky stuff in my condo for when we record the next episode of the podcast, just so everyone can see that I still kept all the Kentucky stuff up. But the catch is if Duke wins, and it may not, to some, it may not sound like as big of a deal, but to them, it definitely is. They have to change their profile picture for a week on Facebook to a Duke player. Doesn't really matter which one. They just have to be wearing a Duke jersey.
Current or former or
any of them.
You should have gone with Christian Laettner.
I tried, but they wouldn't take it.
Oh, wow. The line was drawn.
They would not take the bet. Because they were like
Nolan Smith. That's what they have to do. Nolan Smith.
Or give it to another Kentucky killer. And well, then again, Teasley said if they were to lose that he would pick Zion as his profile picture. But I'm like, that's interesting because
Everyone
Zion gave Kentucky
Zion.
some. Yeah, but he gave Kentucky that work his first collegiate game.
That's true. But everyone loves Zion Williamson. He's like the most lovable player in the history of basketball.
My girlfriend's dad.
Or one of them. He doesn't like. He blew up one shoe and everyone hates him now.
I guess. He got special treatment from Nike, remember? Even though that's protocol, but okay.
Well, I mean, that's legal now anyway.
Well, no, I mean, like, when he blew out a shoe, obviously when a school has a contract with a shoe company, if they have any kind of equipment malfunction, somebody from the organization comes down and makes sure all their equipment's fine. That's protocol. They do it. They did it to Florida State. They did it to the Indiana kid when he blew out his shoe. So that's just protocol.
Yeah, that was scary. Poor Vic. It was the beginning of the downhill spiral of Vic Oladipo.
I don't think it was Vic.
I thought he did. Well, that might have been another game where he did that. Because I know Victor Oladipo had a problem with a shoe once. That was one of the scariest basketball games of my life.
Oh, I think he did while at Indiana, but this Indiana kid I'm talking about, this was around the time Zion was playing at Duke. So it would have been the year Indiana had Romeo Langford. I don't think it wasn't Romeo, though. It was not Romeo, though.
I think it might have been Rob Finney.
Probably.
I think it was Rob Finney. Yeah, now that my mind is starting to piece things together again, I'm pretty sure that was Rob Finney. I still can't believe you didn't pick Trace Jackson Davis. I'm very sad about that because I love him so much.
Sorry.
You could have gotten my goat by picking him 15th, but you did not. You waited.
I went with Fats Russell.
I was surprised you didn't go with Eric Ayala, really, as much as you loved him last week.
My list is set.
I didn't have a list. I didn't know what you were going to do because I figured I was planning on giving you the first pick anyway, and I was just going to pick up the pieces from that point.
Oh, I definitely didn't I didn't make a list. I just kind of drafted off. I just drafted.
I was surprised you didn't take Abaji.
I wanted to, but then I drafted Remy Martin.
So you couldn't. I thought about taking Abaji, but I wanted size more than shooting at the time, so I had a plan for that.
There's a lot of players I wanted, but I could only pick one player per school. So I mean, I would have loved to have had Drew Timme next to Chet Holmgren, but obviously I picked Chet Holmgren first, so
you can't do that.
I would love to have had Cerbello. I would have loved to have had Cerbello too, but I picked Cockburn. So
you did, yeah. I would have loved to have had I should have done this because I think there's another guy who I'm really high on is Julian Champagne from St. John's. I think he could be the Big East Player of the Year, but with Gillespie already on the roster and me having a lot of 6'8" guys, he just didn't make it. But I feel like this will motivate him to be the Player of the Year I think he can be because he is one of the best guys to be the 4 I think I've ever seen play. And I think St. John's is actually going to make some noise this year in a way that not a lot of people are anticipating. I'm nervous for their game. I'm nervous for Indiana to play them because that guy has so much range and rebound ability. He's a 6'8" guy with a great shooting percentage. Julian Champagne, I think, could be the player of the year. I know it's not pronounced Champagne, but it looks like Champagne. And I really apologize for that, but I think he's a great player. I think he's a player of the year candidate in that conference especially. But so that's a player I really regret. He and David Liddy not being able to take. I think those two guys are going to be amazing this year. I think they're both going to make a run in the tournament.
Well, if you remember, Julian Champagne's brother, Justin Champagne, was a really good player for Pittsburgh the year prior. He actually had a very good chance to win ACC Player of the Year. So it just runs deep in the family. But yeah, I mean, the more and more I look at this list of college basketball, there's a lot of guys that I could have drafted. But overall, I'm pretty satisfied with my roster.
I am too. It's just, you think about when you're in the heat of the moment, you don't think about the guys you're not taking because it's like, oh, I should have. I really like Bo Bowie. I really like Champagne. Oh, darn it! Now you're blanking. I really like him. I really like Bo Bowie. I really like Liddy, and it's like, yeah, but you in the heat of the moment, you're gonna go with the guys you've seen play. So I got to do that.
I could have showed some love to the Tennessee Volunteers backcourt. I could have gone with either Kennedy Chandler or Justin Powell, a kid that I covered in high school, almost at college there. But yeah, a kid I covered in high school. Technically. But anyways, two really good guards. But with Kennedy Chandler, with my point guards, I feel like I wanted experience. And with Justin Powell, I feel like kind of like with Davion McKnight, I felt like it was a little too close to home. So just kind of went with as unbiasedly as I could. I mean, I picked Armando Bacot, so I feel like that kind of throws the biasy out of the window. Oh, and Kion Brooks. I picked a North Carolina and a Kentucky guy, so I feel like that throws the biasy out the books.
Did it kill you to do that? I mean, it shouldn't have killed you to do that because I mean they're really good players, but do you ever feel weird when you do that?
I'm gonna feel weird to see the North Carolina and Kentucky fans' satisfaction that I picked two of their guys.
I don't know if I'm gonna earn any ire from them for not picking their guys, but like I wanted to go with my name's blank. We've been talking about so many players. My name is blanking on him. You know the guy I'm talking about, the transfer that Kentucky got from Georgia.
Oh, Severe Willard.
Yeah, I almost went with him. I really like him, but I don't know if Tom Crean has like ruined his mind. I'm afraid of Tom Crean. You would know more than any of us. Before Jason Garrett made clapping terrifying, Tom Crean did. His face, everyone talks about the Watt shot all the time, but Tom Crean's face after that shot is just the most priceless thing I've ever seen, where he's just like even he can't believe he just won that game because he shouldn't have won that game. And I'm like, crap, we're stuck with Tom Crean. We're stuck with this for 4 years now because he beat Kentucky. And we were. And it's like, well, one of those years was good, and the rest were terrible. But Tom Crean, what are you going to do?
I can't help but to think how much Tom Crean owes his career to Dwayne Wade.
Oh, yeah. If Dwayne Wade doesn't go to Marquette, I don't know if we ever hear of Tom Crean, period.
Right. They don't make that Final Four run, and then Tom Crean's just another name.
He's a good mid-major coach who maybe ended up at Georgia before he ended up at Indiana, and then just never went to Indiana or something. But
never goes to like a powerhouse in college basketball like IU. Yeah.
Or never goes to a historical powerhouse, because I don't really know. Even though he did help IU regain their footing, he wasn't around long enough to do anything super impactful. And that's how you have Mike Woodson now. Mike Woodson, who is surprisingly creating expectations for himself in year one. Who would have thunk it?
Who would have thunk it? I didn't know what to think about the Mike Woodson hire, to be completely honest. I heard a lot of mixed emotions. Yeah, had a lot of mixed emotions, but kind of like what you said. Once he started making moves, and it was like, okay, I can respect that.
I was wrong. He's not completely a puppet of like the Bob Knight regime, shadow operating. So I'm excited to see. Like I said, Indiana, I know, beat Belmont in one of those closed door scrimmages by like 11 or 12 points. So I mean, that's probably about right, because Belmont is a very, very competitive team. Like I said, you'll be hearing a lot about Belmont in March. So I'm not surprised at all. It was close. But I'm also kind of disappointed Indiana hasn't played like Kentucky State like Louisville did or Kentucky Wesleyan. Because I would really like to see this team in action, but they're so banged up. They're so banged up, which is both bad and good because they had to condition. So has Duke played any exhibition matches yet, or are they eschewing that this year? Or
That was funny you say that because I was just about to ask if you had seen Duke's exhibition game, but clearly you haven't.
I have not. No.
They played Winston-Salem State. Winston-Salem State, which is a JUCO college in North Carolina. Didn't play last year because of COVID.
Went there.
Stephen A. Smith went there too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So they have some pretty notable alumni, but they didn't play last year due to COVID. But the year before, they won state in their JUCO area competition. Obviously, when you have the talent gap between a JUCO college and a team like Duke, you're expecting a blowout. So I was looking at more of the what's the word I'm looking for? The fundamentals type stuff. How do they switch on defense? How do they, move the ball, share with each other? How do they play together, I guess? Or the intangibles, rather. I was looking for more of the intangibles, and they were all there. I mean,
that's good.
They were up by 50 at halftime, if that tells you anything.
Yeah, but I mean, like you said, when you're playing a JUCO, you kind of expect that, especially with the class they've got coming in. So this is more of an exercise in seeing like how deep the team could get, I suppose, in a pinch. So anybody who's not going to play a lot stand out to you, or
Bates Jones.
Bates
Jones, a graduate transfer from Davidson. Well, when he signed with us, I thought it was more of like a alumni pick because he was the brother of Daniel Jones. But he can really shoot the ball. I think he hit a couple 3-pointers. As far as guys that I don't think is going to play a lot, or Jalen Blakes. Jalen Blakes, I feel like could be that freshman who could play a lot at the beginning, but once conference play comes and Coach K shortens his bench, then I think he's going to lose a lot of minutes. But, he really looked good, made some really nice moves to split double teams and find open teammates. But I'm going to tell you, and I'm not telling you anything, but I just cannot stress enough just how great it is to have Theo John coming off our bench. Well, what stood out to me?
How many blocks did he have?
Oh, it's not that he had any like an insane amount of blocks. Mark Williams had all the blocks. Of course, Mark Williams had like 5 blocks, but it's Mark Williams.
Still.
But what impressed me about Theo John's game is just his basketball IQ and the passes that he made in the low post and the double team. That is going to be such a factor for that second unit, him coming off the bench, because we know he can block shots, even though he didn't have, I think he only had maybe 1, but still, he only had 1. We know he can do it. We know he can rebound the ball. But for him to find open guys in the post, that's going to be a big weapon for us when Mark Williams has to go to the bench and we're not running our death squad lineup with Paulo at the 5. So Theo John's going to keep his minutes throughout the year. I have no question about that.
I mean, he's like we said, he's the all-time leader in blocks at Marquette, so he's done something right.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's really about it. Without Indiana playing any games, I really can't say on them. Louisville looked pretty good, was the other thing. I did see some of that. And it was just like we said, Louisville did a really good job of spacing it and shooting it, which I think is like a good change in pace for them, and it's exactly what they're going to need to be competitive. Let Malik Williams go to work down the lane and then just space the ball out otherwise. And they really did a good job of that against Kentucky State. Kentucky, I mean, it's Kentucky Wesleyan. I thought they'd win by 90,000 points anyway. Kion Brooks did look really good. He had a couple of really good deep shots. So to support your pick in our mock draft, I think he's going to be really fun. This is going to be a breakout year for him. I followed him in high school because he was around here. And it was really honestly disappointing to see watch him decline the first couple years of Kentucky. But I think this year is definitely going to be his breakout year. I'm not going to jump up and say he's going to be SEC Player of the Year, but he's going to at least average. I think he'll at least average around 15 points. So I think he's going to be really good.
Was Kion Brooks on that La Lumiere team that was number 1 in the country?
Yes.
I believe. Yeah, okay.
Because that was one of those guys where Indiana fans kind of wanted him, I mean, it would have been nice to have a guy like that, but I don't think he would have fit in well at Indiana at all, especially with the way Archie Miller was doing things at the time. So I think he made the right move going to Kentucky, even if it turned out to be a little bit rough. Because if he would have had that rough of a time at Bloomington, he would have never heard the end of it. It was already bad enough at Kentucky. And like I said, I think now he's got his feet under him. He's got some confidence. I think he's going to have a breakout year. So those are my big takeaways from watching the Louisville and Kentucky for the other area teams doing their scrimmage types games. But they look pretty good. They look pretty good. And like I said, it's hard to judge against like JUCO Division III talent. But I really like the way Louisville's reinvigorated their offense here. And like I said, Kion Brooks just looks like he's finally got something going, which I'm really happy for him. I'm always happy when an Indiana high school kid succeeds, even if it's against IU. So,
And it's funny because anytime you have a Duke or Kentucky freshman coming in, you're expected to make that leap automatically in that first year and go pro. And I feel like, and oftentimes when a player doesn't and they need multiple years, people often look at that as like a failure, but it really shouldn't be because some players just need more time to develop. That's just the reality of it. I mean, and kind of like what Chris Mack always said, for every Zion Williamson or Anthony Davis, there's a Luka Garza or Obi Toppin, a guy that needs more years, and then they end up being really good players. So, I mean, it just depends on the player, just depends on when they develop and, what they need. If they, whatever works for them. What might work for one might not work for another.
And the downside of that, too, is like when you don't succeed right away. I mean, remember Scala BCR, the second coming of Anthony Davis? He floundered in his first year and, like, he had to go pro because I don't think he would have been welcome back at Kentucky with the way that people reacted to like that kind of down year. He came on late, but people expected him to be the next Anthony Davis in a lot of their minds. And when he wasn't, it was kind of like backlash. So it would have been interesting to see what would have happened if he would have stuck around for 3 years like Kion Brooks has. So it's a process. Yeah, it's definitely a process when you have when you're trying to figure out how to run a blue chip lineup rotation. So, but it's going to be interesting to see the guys who make big jumps this year, especially with the transfer market being as hot as it was, with everybody, with the new coaching systems we've got in some places. It's going to be an interesting season to say the least.
And I think you hit the nail on the head perfectly. Kion Brooks didn't have the expectation that Scala BCR had coming into Kentucky, and I think that has played a big role in why Kion Brooks was able to successfully stay at Kentucky for more than 1 year without feeling the pressure to transfer or go pro. But anyways, I mean, that about wraps up everything I got to say for this podcast, unless you want to end on a note.
I'm going to end on one thing. This one thing here, and it is related to college basketball. I promise. And that I really think that if there's any conference we're not talking about that's going to be really good out of nowhere, it's definitely the AAC. I don't feel like we've talked about the ACC near enough. They've still got Cincinnati. They've got that great Memphis team where you and I picked players from. They've got Imani Bates. They've got Keones. They've got Etienne up in Wichita State. They've got Kenrick Davis at SMU. And I don't even feel like we've talked about Houston at all. Houston still has Kelvin Sampson. They still have a lot of the pieces from last year. They have a Marcus Sasser, I'm sorry, who's a really good player to watch, 13 points a game last season. I'm just going to say, like, if you get the chance, and UConn's in the Big East now. Sorry, UConn fans, you're in the Big East now. But if you get a chance to watch some AAC basketball on a Sunday afternoon, definitely do it because there are a lot of players in that conference who can, even though the team isn't very deep, who can definitely transform a team and turn them into a team you would not want to encounter during March Madness. Whether that's Etienne, whether that's Davis at SMU, you really want to watch some ACC basketball on a Sunday afternoon, especially if your team's out of the playoff chasing football. Just get used to it. Enjoy that conference because there are a lot of explosive players in there who are going to make it worth your while. So AAC, surprisingly deep conference, surprisingly good players. Watch it.
I did mention Houston in our college basketball preview, that it could be a team to watch out for. Yeah,
but no. On the whole.
Right. Yeah, we didn't really talk about the whole AAC as a whole, like you said. It's a very, very deep conference, very competitive conference, and should be some very good basketball. And of course, we're the winners here, Matt, because we get to watch some good basketball.
Yes, we do. The fans are the winners as always.
Yes, sir. But anyways, that's all the time we have for today. So without further ado, Matt and I are out.
Goodbye.